Hi guys! Today I would like to share with you my tricks and tips on week 1 blog from the Scheepjes Last Dance on the Beach cow. There's a wonderful official tutorials by It's All in a Nutshell channel, but I always like to tinker a little bit with the pattern, so I thought I'll share a few tips with you. If you are a beginner crocheter, you will find a lot of patterns will tell you to chain so many numbers of stitches and then do the next stitch into the chain. I always replace that with a chainless foundation row. There's lots of tutorials on that on the web already, so you can just find it. Just make sure that you look for the proper terminology, whether you're using US or UK terms. I work with US terms. So I always start with a foundation row that's chainless, which is much faster. If your foundation row is curling up, make sure you pull up that first chain loop. It's a little bit like Tunisian stitch, a little bit higher than the rest of the stitches. The next trick I would like to tell you is, if the pattern tells you to chain 3 at the beginning of the row when you're turning, I always ignore that and I replaced it with the starting stitch, which mimics the thickness of whatever your next stitch is, rather than being a thin chain. There's a few methods that are slightly different. There's a video tutorial on Mowgli blog. I found it a little bit too thin and hard to work into on the way when I return, so my preferred method is when I turn, I do a single stitch, US terminology, into the first stitch, and then I immediately do single stitch again into the same stitch, just into the front, the legs, rather than the stitch. And that gives me a nice thick starting stitch for the rest of the row, and I don't have big holes at the beginning. So if you're struggling with the big holes, look out for replacing chain 3 at the beginning. The next trick I would like to share with you is, if you're not happy with the big holes that I created next to the popcorns, you can do a single stitch in those skipped stitches, and on the way back make a single stitch as well. That will basically minimize those holes. So on this one I haven't got big holes. The next tip I could give you is, I personally am not happy with the gauge on this project. It's really way beyond my comfort zone for the height of the stitches. This is Merino Soft and it's calling for 19 centimeters square. In order for me to achieve that, I had to use 5.5mm hook, which is, I think, quite large considering that this is a decay yarn. So it creates really loose but nice and floppy texture, but it's a bit thin for a blanket in my opinion, so especially in the UK when it's quite chilly in the evenings. So I did practice with different size of hooks. I'm still getting either too short or too high, no matter how much I pull up. It's maybe the way I crochet. I'm left-handed crocheter. So what I did is I replaced the double stitch, or treble in the UK, with a linked stitch, which, if you compare normal double stitch, will create, especially with a big gauge like this pattern calls for, really holy blanket. And I can just see my kids just sticking their fingers in and just stretching even more, so I wasn't happy with that. So with the linked stitch, you link each chain, each stitches into each other. There's a lovely tutorial by Crochet Ever After channel, so check it out. And I think it creates a little bit more denser fabric, but it's still quite pleasant. I used 5mm hook for that, and it's nearly on target. It looks like it's wider than it's taller, so I will have to block it a bit. And it does take a little bit more concentration, but I think it's worth trying it, especially if you're not happy with the holes. The final trick and tip I would like to share with you is the edging. If you're not happy with the holes that it creates at the edges, first of all try to stick your single stitches, use a slightly larger hook and try to stick them into the stitches rather than around the whole stitches. And also Felted Button had a tutorial on how to do slip stitch row first on the rough edges in a loose, slightly higher size hook, and then do the single stitches as the pattern calls for. I think that gives it a really nice, almost holeless edging. I hope that was useful. I'm looking forward to the week 2, and if I have any tips to share with you, I will post them within a day or 2. So thank you for watching. Don't forget, you can find me on Instagram, Craftsador2. Bye guys!